Have you ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? If you have, then you will be familiar with the fact that he was one of the last Sith in Darth Bane's long lineage in the Rule of Two era, having trained and then been killed by Darth Sidious. He was one of the final pieces of the puzzle in the Sith's grand plan. However, as the Rule of Two goes, there is always one master and one apprentice. So, let's move up the line to the master who trained Darth Plagueis himself, and how he almost became the ruler of the entire galaxy without anybody's help, not even Plagueis, and without Plagueis even knowing. This is the story of Darth Tenebrous, the forgotten Sith Lord who changed everything. Darth Tenebrous was a male Bith who went by the name Ruges Gnome before he was found by a Sith Master. To the galaxy, he was a legendary starship designer, and this disguise put him in a great place to become good friends with the highest echelons of power. But as Darth Tenebrous, he was a scientific mastermind with a dangerous obsession. Now, we don't know too much about who trained Darth Tenebrous, other than it was a male Twi'lek, but we do know a little bit of what they did together. Around this time, the Sith were beginning to sense that the culmination of the grand plan was at hand. For this generation of Sith, they were scientists, and as such, had thought it would be science that would destroy the Jedi in the end. Tenebrous and his master devised a scheme to create a virus that would sever the Jedi from the Force entirely. However, their experiment ultimately failed. Just following this, Darth Tenebrous no longer saw his master as useful, and believing he had eclipsed his power, killed him, taking on the role of the One Dark Lord. You see, the character of Tenebrous was very much unlike many other Sith Lords. He didn't view the Force as some sort of encompassing all-powerful entity. His logical Bith mind refuted the idea of something so mystical and out of his reach. So Tenebrous decided to rationalize the Force as something he could grasp, treating it as a useful energy source to be used as fuel for his experiments, and not a religion that he followed to the death. This is a sentiment that he would pass on to his own apprentice, Darth Plagueis. Both of these Sith respected the process and enjoyed the science of the universe. They didn't place stock in hardly any mysticism of the Force whatsoever, with Plagueis not even believing in Sith spirits or Jedi Force ghosts. Because of this, they did grow powerful, but I have a theory that the dark side of the Force itself kept many secrets from them because they did not respect it, believing it to simply be a means to an end. This might be why no spirits of Korriban presented themselves to Darth Plagueis when he arrived on the world, possibly because they saw him as a heretic unworthy of their presence. For Tenebrous, the race to immortality among the Sith had gotten very real. With the grand plan at hand, he knew that he could be the final Sith Emperor to rule forever. His ultimate ambition was as audacious as his philosophy. He wanted to conquer death itself, but with the cold detachment of a scientist. His solution was one of the most ingenious and disturbing plans in Sith history. For years, Tenebrous dedicated his brilliant mind to the study of midi-chlorians, seeing them as simple organelles that could be manipulated. He created a retrovirus designed to infect his own midi-chlorians, transforming them into something he called maxi-chlorians. These altered organelles would be encoded with his consciousness, his memories, and his will. First things first, Tenebrous wanted an apprentice of equal mind but more subservient, believing Darth Plagueis might have grown too ambitious. He secretly trained another apprentice on the side, a young Bith he named Darth Venomous, with hopes that Venomous would one day help him overthrow Plagueis. Tenebrous also had a vision one night that the Chosen One prophecy of the Jedi would soon make himself known. Fearful, he had to create a plan that would ensure he would reign supreme. The plan was chillingly logical. Upon his inevitable betrayal by Plagueis, a betrayal Tenebrous fully anticipated, the maxi-chlorians would migrate from his dying body into Plagueis, completely undetected, but this was only the first step. Tenebrous planned to lie dormant, waiting until his apprentice found and trained the prophesied Chosen One. At that moment, Tenebrous would strike, transferring his essence into the Chosen One, seizing the most powerful body in the galaxy for himself and achieving ultimate power. To enact his grand design, Tenebrous needed an apprentice with the intellect to grasp his scientific view of the Force. He found that in a young moon he would name Darth Plagueis. Tenebrous trained him relentlessly in the cold, hard logic of science. Being a Bith and a Moon, both were highly intelligent species. He was mostly concerned with bringing Plagueis up on the science of the Force so they could bring their research to new heights together. Yet, Tenebrous was a true Sith Master. He deliberately withheld his most critical findings from Plagueis, ensuring he always maintained intellectual superiority. He would send Plagueis on pointless missions to work on his secret retrovirus. This was the paradox of their relationship. Tenebrous was molding Plagueis into a perfect logical successor, yet he simultaneously planted the seeds of mistrust. He was teaching Plagueis to be calculating, patient, and ruthless, the very traits an apprentice would need to one day overthrow their master. His paranoia and dedication to his own plan led him to acquire that second secret apprentice, Darth Venomous, as a failsafe. Tenebrous was playing a multi-layered game of chess against the future, and Plagueis was just one essential but ultimately expendable piece on the board. Soon the time came for his plan to be put into action, but at the moment, Tenebrous least expected it. Roughly 67 years before the Battle of Yavin, Tenebrous and Plagueis went inside some mines on the planet of Baldemnik to search for cortosis ore. Along the way, one of the mining droids they were sent with suddenly exploded, having been sabotaged. Tenebrous contained the explosion with the Force, but while he was focusing, Plagueis caused the ceiling above them to collapse, crushing Darth Tenebrous under large stones. As Tenebrous lay dying, he began to put the pieces together that Plagueis had successfully betrayed him. At first, Tenebrous was proud and impressed with his apprentice, but that pride quickly turned to disappointment and anger as he realized the rubble had also destroyed their ship, leaving Plagueis stranded on a hostile world. This obviously risked the future of the Sith Order if both master and apprentice were to perish. Displeased with his master's sore reception of his rise to power, Plagueis snapped his neck. As the life faded from Tenebrous's body, Plagueis, ever the student, began to study the microscopic changes in his master's dying form. But he was watching the wrong thing. This would have been the end of the Sith had Tenebrous not completed his experiment. In that final moment, the trap had been sprung. Death was not the end. Tenebrous's own version of essence transfer had been made. His self-made maxi-chlorians, carrying his consciousness, left his body, hiding within Plagueis's very midi-chlorians, completely unbeknownst to his apprentice. Darth Tenebrous literally hid within the very cells of Plagueis. In order to fulfill his goals, though, Tenebrous had sacrificed his ability to sense the motion of the future, something he no longer required since he already knew what his future held. Now a passenger inside his apprentice, the Sith Lord gained access to Plagueis's powers of Force sight. At that moment, Tenebrous discovered and felt Plagueis's own death at the hands of his apprentice, Sidious, which was only visible as a smear of darkness. This vision horrified Tenebrous, knowing that Plagueis would die too soon. Tenebrous would not fulfill his ultimate goal of possessing the Chosen One. Desperately, he looked into the future again, but could see nothing. The virus was now severing his host's connection to the Force's visions. Fully giving himself to panic, Tenebrous decided to escape Plagueis's body, only to discover his own mummified remains. Time had now passed, possibly decades or centuries, but the Sith Lord was unaware of just how long. He then wondered if his Force sight had not been eliminated, but that he had twisted it upon himself, forcing him to endlessly relive his death. Thus he acquired the coveted immortality, but not at all as he had desired it to be. Now, Tenebrous was trapped in an endless loop of death, his consciousness still living on in this new hell of his own creation, without even a mouth to which he could scream. Darth Tenebrous remains one of the most obscure yet influential Sith Lords in the 1,000-year history of Darth Bane's order. His revolutionary philosophy, which viewed the Force as a calculable science, was passed directly to Darth Plagueis. Plagueis refined these methods, using them for experiments that would ultimately lead to the creation of Anakin Skywalker. He then passed this cold rationalist approach to his own apprentice, Darth Sidious, who used that patient, methodical manipulation to orchestrate the fall of the Jedi and the rise of the Empire. The ultimate irony is that the very logic Tenebrous championed was his undoing. He, the master of calculation, failed to account for the ambition he so carefully cultivated. His grand plan was a catastrophic failure, yet in that failure, he provided the philosophical framework that allowed the Sith to finally achieve their ultimate victory. What did you think of this terrifying tale of Darth Plagueis' master? Do you believe that he was a good Sith Lord? Or do you think that he made too many mistakes to be a proper suitor for Emperor of the Galaxy? Let us know what you think down below in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you.